It was a day like no other, a day where Earth's mightiest heroes assembled. Heroes like Swordsman and Hellcat and Hawkeye wearing Wolverine's costume. Yeah, that's right, it's Heroes Reborn. Hey everybody, this is Perch. I've been looking at the Avengers and going through the kind of launches of all the different launches. And what's funny is there was a long period where there was no new Avengers, and then we got finally our first kind of number one, and after the initial launch, and it's this Heroes Reborn issue. This is November 1996. This is in the, I would say, the death throes of the night of the 90s boom. This was the bad time, or not. Sorry, this was the start of the bad time. The bad time was later in the 90s, the really bad time. But this was when a lot of the image books that had been solicited were not shipping, and that the speculator boom was starting to blow up. And this comic, the Heroes Reborn comic, did sell really well. What basically it promised was a lot of the image kind of revolution founders, the Jim Lee, Rob Liefelds. They were going to come back and they were going to do Marvel books. They were going to kind of take over and do the books that were core to their title, Fantastic Four and Iron Man and Captain America and the Avengers. These are the mainstay heroes of Marvel. And how would these kind of legendary creators who were stifled at Marvel and had to leave to do Image, how would they handle running their own book? And we see it here, it really weirdly, as it turns out. So first thing, I just want to have people notice this cover of the Avengers has been, passed around a bunch, and but what's going on with Scarlet Witch's arm? Like it's this the underarm. It's like she's bendy. It's like they cropped out. Every time I see this, right above the swordsman's weird, bucket, their porridge bowl haircut, it's like they cropped somebody out of the picture. And we got this very, very strange arm. A lot of people go at Liefeld for various things, but this part of the underarm is just very, very peculiar. I'm just saying. It looks like something was edited out, or I don't know what was going on here. But all in all, it's strange. Anyway, we get in, and clearly this comic is trying to bring the feels of the original Avengers. It starts with Loki. He's plotting. The very first Avengers did too. We had Loki and some high stepping in Ben Grimm language around he is still a god, he is Loki, scion of the Allfather, brother to the thunder. And this is comics being brought to you by Rob Liefeld, who is the story and the pencils for the second half, and Chap Yap, who was the pencils for the first half, scripting by Jim Valentino. Basically Loki is plotting away, and he is going to try and figure out, he's pissed off at Thor, and he knows he's on Earth somewhere, so he needs to go kind of figure it out. So he wanders down on the planet, and somewhere off the coast of Norway, we find Dr. Blake, and Dr. Blake, of course, who was Thor at a period during Marvel's history. He has come across a figure frozen in ice, but the 90s twist, is that it's not Captain America this time, it is Thor. And so the trick is we better call them people from S.H.I.E.L.D. and see if they can get their heroes out here. The Invaders, the Defenders, no, the Avengers. And Loki is like, I have a vague memory that this is some bad stuff. And of course he does, because Loki was part of the group of heroes and villains that were transported by Onslaught into transported by Franklin Richards after the battle with Onslaught into this pocket dimension that would wrap up in about 12, 13 issues. Anyway, so we get to meet the Avengers for the first time. We get one of them cool 90s headquarters shots of, the Avengers Harbor. This is in New York. And I always remember picturing this, thinking, where would this giant, futuristic Avengers building be in New York Harbor? But it's the little things you get to think about. But anyway, somewhere in this building, we've got Agatha Harkness, and she is hanging out with Wanda. We're meeting our first Avenger. Wanda is, kind of a little horny for Captain America, apparently, and she's thinking about, he's cute. Wanda's going to be kind of all over the place during this issue, attracted to Vision and all the rest. Anyway, she senses Loki, so Loki knows she's got some cool magic. He gets the heck out of there and meets a second member, Swordsman. Swordsman, of course, is reimagined for this Heroes Reborn world in kind of the classic, lots of belts, lots of pockets, lots of various pieces of cloth hanging around places, and he's checking himself in the mirror like all good swordsmen do. He's got kind of that three-sword Zorro style. Actually, more swords than that. No, I think just 3 swords he's got. Anyway, we briefly pick in at Hawkeye, but we don't see him other than just in silhouette. It's classic Hawkeye diss. Even back then. And then we find the next member, Hellcat, and she's got no nose. And she's just kind of lounging around, wants to give Vision a massage, which checks out. Why not? Captain America is reminiscing about all the terrible things that have gone on in his life, the World War II, and then he had a family apparently, and he wants a family is what he wants here, and we see some various people, some classic kind of montage, characters here, and then we meet Nick Fury, who's running the Avengers. What's interesting is that the Ultimates would take a lot of elements of this. The big futuristic building in the harbor, Nick Fury kind of managing the team, more military-based operation in some ways. It's interesting. A lot of people might not guess that Mark Millar actually took a bunch of inspiration from old Rob Liefeld here in Heroes Reborn. But at any rate, we get some argument going on, and we're off to do our mission. We finally get to see Scarlet Witch in costume, and she's got this absolutely bizarre headpiece that I'm sure looked good on somebody's sketchboard, but this obviously did not play out right. And I'd forgotten how much Chep Yap likes to draw chins. There's a mega chins going on in this comic. But we're getting more tours. We're meeting Dr. Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, and they're super happy, and Van Dyne is irritated at being called a mom. So we're getting that kind of weird dynamic of the two, the inventor Hank Pym, and they're clearly having a little fight. So some things never change. Anyway, we're getting lots of little hints of here's Ultron, first Ultron, and so we're trying to cram a lot into this issue of the entire Avengers history. I've always wondered when they did this if the idea here was that this was going to last forever, or what point where they were going to fold back into the Marvel Universe. There's been a lot of... The problem is there's been different stories. I've heard 2 exactly opposite stories. The intention always was to do a break and then eventually bring them back in. So people were always thinking 1 to 2 years. And I've others that honestly believed that they were going to keep the Marvel Universe separate for quite some time and then cross over at intervals in the future. But it all kind of came undone in a year. And it's curious that when they were starting this issue, was it the creator, was Liefeld just trying to throw as many things at the wall as possible to get as much of the Avengers fix out as he could? It's hard to say, but we have we get the Avengers out to Old Norway, and they come across the Hammer, and they come across Thor, and it's time to flip over to Rob Liefeld. He's going to take over now the art, and we are officially going to break old Thor out of this thing. Everybody hits it with their sticky weapons, their sharp tools, and then finally do some shenanigans with hex magic and the Vision grabbing onto a shield. We get out Thor. Thor cracks free, and he's immediately befuddled by Loki, just kind of like the Hulk. Again, the twist here is that it's Thor that Loki is manipulating, and that's kind of the... but otherwise, the same story beats. Thor proceeds to go on a little rampage against the Avengers, who are kind of being drawn differently from panel to panel, but they have their fight, and they classic 90s storytelling. Stand to, base varlet, and know what it means to face a warrior born. And Captain America's saying, Blake, get those civilians out of here. And then he's thinking, don't know how much this pounding my shield can absorb. You're pounding. Anyway, his strength is unbelievable. And so they have themselves a little fight. And ultimately it comes down to, Thor gets his memory back. Scarlet Witch uses her magics that Loki was kind of scared of and sends old Loki away. and the battle solved. So they kind of reconcile. And so heroes misunderstanding. They are going to, Thor's going to join, and Hellcat's kind of super horny for Thor because of course she is. And Avengers assemble. Let our battle cry ring forth. Everybody's happy. And we get a little post-credits teaser of Loki in a room with no backgrounds, or as I call it, the page that needed to be drawn quickly. And he comes into the Enchantress, who's got, I think, legitimately the longest legs of any character in history. When they say, like, where are her organs? There's too many organs in here. They're all down her legs. She's been to the Willy Wonka stretching machine. But anyway, and in the next panel we get like lots of hair. Like now she's Medusa. But anyway, we get the Enchantress. She's my daughter for Scarlet Witch. Ah ha ha. Okay, so what a twist. And then we get Kang next issue. So in terms of relaunches, well, on the bright side, it didn't include lots of, panels of characters talking. It was a pretty by-the-numbers book of kind of reintroducing a team. Here's the Avengers. If you read a lot of comics in the 90s from Image or, Wildstorm, Wildstorm was Image, but any of these different Extreme Studios books, it all felt this way. You had, some threat, and then we meet the heroes, and they're doing, standard civilian kind of wacky stuff, and they're moving around, and then they're called to respond to a threat, and they show up, and they have a fight, and it's wrapped up in one issue, and then we won, but the threat still looms out there somewhere. So very much, we just checked the boxes, I think, so to speak, of a team book. This is what a team book looked like in the 90s. In terms of being Avengers book, I mean, it was a little bit odd. The lack of Iron Man, the more contemporary group here, the 90s-ification of belts and pockets and, various different things. A couple of these characters, it's interesting. We wanted to throw in Hellcat and Swordsman, but they didn't do anything in this comic. I mean, they were just kind of stood around and hung out. This was a comic that mainly was Captain America, Scarlet Witch. They're the main characters. Vision kind of in there. Hawkeye looks like Wolverine for some reason with Magneto's like little necklace collar business going on. So it really, they added characters to be new and different in 90s, but they didn't then use them. So it's kind of a strange take. Weird that a #1 issue would have two artists. I mean, we had Chap Yap, we had Rob Liefeld. Their styles are vaguely similar, but there's enough difference you can definitely tell there's two artists going on. And kind of a bum deal for Chap Yap to get kind of third billing behind Rob Liefeld and Jim Valentino when he did the first half of the issue. I mean, poor guy did most of the first 20 pages. So this is a big comic. It read quickly, again, like a lot of 90s comics do. Not a lot of kind of meat here. It did have a lot of little Easter eggs of characters and situations being different. And so longtime Marvel readers would definitely feel both some familiarity and then also that it was a whole new world going on. In terms of Avengers relaunches, certainly not the best, not the worst either. But it's interesting to take this in contrast. It was definitely a 90s relaunch. That is definitely true. Just like the Marvel Now #1 was very much kind of a 2000s, 2010s. These comics felt like the times, and you'll see that as we go through the different Avengers issues and how they all kind of played out, and they very much fit with what they were. But anyway, what did you think? Did you buy this issue? Do you remember when this came out? Were you excited? How does it feel in hindsight? The Avengers would go on to certainly fight Kang and do some stuff with the Hulk, and lots of Thor Hulk fights that would go on, but quite an odd little run. Not one that I think a lot of people remember, terribly fondly. We do get an evil Scarlet Witch. We get a couple other things, but we also get some more artist changes. We get Ian Churchill in there after a while. So Loki is kind of the primary bad villain. We get Ant-Man, a lot of little pieces. But definitely kind of an uneven series. So did you like it? Did you not like it? Leave your comments below. Like and subscribe if you don't mind. Introduce it to a friend. That's always very appreciated. Follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch, and thanks for listening.